Welcome to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where real people share timeless ideas. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and in every episode we dive into the philosophies, quotes, points, and life lessons that shape how we live, think, and grow. No matter where you are in life, this show is here to remind you wisdom is everywhere, and it's always relatable most of the times. Today on Relatable Wisdom, I'm joined by Chad Betz, author of An Authentic Success. Chad's guiding quote is simple but powerful. Success doesn't have an expiration date. And I love that because so many people quietly carry this fear that they're behind and that they missed their moment, or that because life did not follow the timeline they imagined, maybe their best chance is gone. But Chad's story challenges that belief. For years, he followed the path that many people are told success should look like: work hard, build a career, take responsibility, and check all the right boxes. But one day, sitting alone in the parking garage, he found himself feeling like a failure, even though on paper he had done so many things right. That moment became a turning point. Instead of seeing his experiences, setbacks, and lessons as evidence that he had missed his chance, Chad began to see them as assets. Chad, welcome to Relatable Wisdom.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Chad, your quote is success doesn't have an expiration date. That sounds encouraging on the surface, but I feel like it probably came from a place of deep frustration, maybe even disappointment. Can you take us back to the moment in your life when that truth became personal for you?
You are 100% correct. You had mentioned the story in your introduction of me in my car. It was after a long day at work. I was exhausted. It was a 10 or 12-hour day. I was just sitting in my car in the parking garage. You had the smell of gasoline and the pollution from the exhaust. You hear the cars going behind you, squeaking their tires around the corners. And I was just sitting there frozen and just yelling in my head, what have I done in my life? I felt like a complete failure. And like you mentioned, if you were to look at me from the outside, you may say that, well, Chad, you look like you were succeeding. But I had certain expectations that were given to me by society, by my family, by my friends. And then I had the reality of where I was. I was climbing up this corporate ladder. Wasn't where I wanted to be. I was frustrated. And looking back, I saw the disconnect was causing my frustration. And then further along, I found my ladder wasn't even against the right wall. I was pursuing someone else's idea of success. And it wasn't until I reflected and found my own idea of success that I was able to really find fulfillment in my life and move forward.
Wow. And I'm curious, how did you go from, this is not exactly what I want, so I think I found what I want?
I kind of equate it to, it's like a large truck speeding down the highway. So going very fast, you can't just turn, otherwise you'll crash. So you have to make slight adjustments as you go. And that's how I did it. I went and I said, there's something not right with what I'm doing. So I need to change. So I guess that's the first step, is having that concept that you need change. Once that's established, what is that change? I took some deep reflection, and then experimentation. It would be great if we could just run off and chase our passions, but we have bills to pay. I had a family to support. I couldn't just run off and do something else. So I made incremental changes. I tried side businesses. Some of them were successful and I liked, some weren't so successful and I didn't like. And through that experimentation, I was able to find what gave me fulfillment. I use a tool called the OODA loop, OODA. First O is for observe. What's it like? Where am I? Second one is orient. Where do I want to go? How do I go from here to there? The D is for decide. Make that decision. You have to commit to making that change. And then the most important one is the A, is to act. And I did that a series of times. Observe, orient, decide, act, and move myself around until I found what I wanted to do.
When someone looks successful from the outside, as you did, but feels empty on the inside, what do you think they're actually grieving?
It's really just even a step back. When you feel that, so you don't feel successful, but everybody's telling you you're successful. You're thinking, am I crazy? Am I asking too much? Is this what my life should be? And from that can cause deep, deep frustration. So a lot of times people just keep investing in it and it doesn't work. So it's important at this point to either, reflect yourself, or if you can't, if you find that blockage, you're so frustrated that you can't act, is to find an independent third party like a mentor or a coach to kind of help you out, to break that wall so you can really find your success. And I kind of went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. A lot of people don't admit they feel behind because they think it makes them look ungrateful or weak. Why do you think accomplished people struggle to say, this life doesn't feel like success to me?
They invest a lot in their past, so they see what they've done and they've invested in it. Uh, and they're not willing to ask the question, if I were to start again, would I do the same thing? They're afraid to do that. One, they think they may not like to answer, or two, they may think that their past is a waste. So they're afraid to make those changes. So they stay, rather than, trying to move forward to find something better. And that's really a big mistake. They're giving up a potentially great future just to honor their past. Whereas if they use their past in new ways, they'd be able to do greater things.
You're investing in your past.
Mhm.
Phew. In my brain, there are three, when you use the word past, there are three, a pattern, a three-pronged pattern. That's the past, the present, and the future.
Mhm.
In this case, it seems it's bad to invest in our past and trying to build in our past. Is it okay to build in our future? Is it okay to build in our present?
I always like to mixture the three. I mean, your past is part of you. Let's go to an extreme example.
Okay.
Let's say you did a criminal act and you spent time in prison, and now you're trying to reform yourself.
Yeah.
Your past doesn't go away. It's still there, and you have to address it. But that doesn't mean you can't. So the past is still valid. What you've done, if it's good, if it's great, if it's bad, it's there. And you could use that to your advantage, or you might have to overcome some obstacles depending on what it is. The present is the only place you could work. This is the only place where you achieve things, is right now. It's too late in the past and the future hasn't come here. But you do need to keep an eye on the future. What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And how do you want to get there? All of those things live in the future. So you leverage your past to work in the present so you get to your future. So I think you have to consider all three, but all the work happens in the present.
All the work happens in the present. I think a very common example I've seen is people having quote unquote their best years in the past,
Mhm.
and then they're doing something and it's like past glory. And they're like, I can never be better. All I could do was in the past.
Yeah, that's a lot of people suffer from that. And and there's certain things that's like right now, I'm a couple years shy of 60. I'm overweight. I will never be an Olympic sprinter, but that's okay. So that doesn't mean that I can't achieve things. As we grow and we develop, what's important to us changes. So what I wanted when I was 20 is not necessarily the same as what I want now. So when people are thinking, oh, in high school, I was a great athlete and I was, never able to accomplish anything else since then. There's no reason why they can't start an exercise routine and maybe not perform to the same level, but still get enjoyment out of the sport they played, or to move forward with something new. So there's always something new to try if you're only able to open your mind to it.
There's always something new to try. I love the way you gave that example of you um, getting close to 60. Sometimes we confuse facts for stories that we've told ourselves. There's a fact that you're growing. I don't want to use the word. You're growing old,
No, that's
and
okay.
you're not a
Better than the
young.
alternative.
I mean, you're young man at heart, but you're not a young man, and
Right.
that's a fact. The bones, the biology, it's there. But what would be a story you're telling yourself is if you are telling yourself that I'm old, I can't learn, or I can't really give back. I'm trying to think of a pop. Help me out here. I'm trying to think of a popular stories people tell themselves, especially people who there's what they call empty nest people, where
Right.
their kids, have left the house and they feel like, all the ideology of building success has been the kids, and now that there are no kids to take care of, it seems as though they're not valuable, or there's really nothing they can offer. And these are all stories that they'll tell themselves. It's not really that it's a fact or anything. Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, and that's what's happening is they are focused on a period in the past, what success meant to them before. So what success meant to them when there were children in the house is different than success without children in the house. So if their whole purpose in life was the raising of children, and now the children are grown, if they don't change their idea of success, then they're lost. They don't know what to do, and they can start getting depressed or frustrated or feeling old and feeling, my best years are behind me, because they haven't come up with what their new purpose is. And that's very, very important, because, you were joking about the age thing, but, it's like, if things go on, I mean, even, at you getting towards 60, I got 25 years of stuff to do. That's a
Yeah.
long time. What am I going to do with that? If I lose purpose, then I start to decline. So having purpose, acting on that purpose, and having a goal that reflects the state of life you're in now is very important. Whether you're 20, whether you're 40, or whether you're 80, it's all the same. You have to have purpose and goals that reflect where you are in your life at this moment.
I mean, for young people like me, it's kind of hard to tell, because we've not really tried things in the world to really know, okay, this is what I want.
Mhm.
And sometimes it might just be that we're stressed out. Not that the thing with itself we're doing, eh, not that the thing we're doing isn't what we want. It's just that
Right.
we just had maybe a very chaotic day, and it seems as though this is the end of the world. How do we separate that from, oh, you shouldn't be, this isn't what you want to do. You should go find your calling.
At that, the one thing I found too, and I work with, younger people as well, and the influences on their life, their friends, their family, pushes them towards certain things. Oh, you should continue school in this way, because if you do that, then you'll always have a job. Oh, you should go and you should keep this job. Well, don't start a business. Do you know how many businesses fail? So instead of listening to friends and family, and just generally what society says, talk to people who know what they're talking about. If you
Yeah.
want to start a business, talk to someone who's been successful at starting a business. If you have a certain job you want to do, talk to somebody who's done that. Those are called informational interviews. Meeting with somebody to get an idea of what you need to do and what goes into it. And if you find someone who is really good, you'll find the good things, you'll find the bad things, the tedious things, what you need to really work hard on. And the more information you have, the better decision you can make. But you will never have all the information. There's always going to be a risk. So it's sometimes you have to take that risk. When you're younger and have fewer responsibilities, you may want to go and jump in with both feet. But if you do have responsibilities, you might want to start slower and have a side job where you're trying it out to see how it works. So, and if you don't like it, doesn't work, then you still have your income and you can go and try something else. So that's the whole thing. It's just taking action, experimenting, seeing what works for you, and talking to people who know what they talk about, not people who are going to be emotional and say, oh, don't do that. It's too much risk.
Well, oh, don't do that. It's so much risk. There's a term you use a lot, and that's a sunk cost fallacy.
Mhm.
In business, people keep investing. I've already spent $1,000 in this. I might as well just spend an extra 500 so that it doesn't look like I wasted the money.
Exactly. That's right.
How does that translate in things like relationship, career, I don't know, hobbies, and all the other things in life other than just business ventures?
Sure. So we'll start with career just real quick because that's the easiest one to describe it on. So you've been in a job. It's okay, and then you've been doing it for a few years. And so you continue to do it. And now you've been doing it for 10 years. And you're thinking, oh, I really just don't like this. But I've spent 10 years of my life doing this. What else am I going to do? Where can I go? That's a sunk cost fallacy where you keep investing the time and the energy in something that's not working with the hope that it's going to get better or that it's just going to turn out a way that it really is not going to turn out. Whereas instead of investing more, we should ask the question, if I were to start again today,
Yeah.
would I do the same thing? And the same thing happens like with, let's say you have a series of friends who, you started out, you're young, you're partying, and you go and you went to a lot of bars, and everybody got drunk and moves around. But now you're getting a little bit older, and that's not your scene anymore. You want to, you have a job and you're working, but your friends, keep wanting to go and do that. So the inertia says you should go and do that, but it's kind of hurting you because you wake up late, you're tired, so it's hurting your career, maybe hurting your family, but you can keep on doing it because you've done that. You're afraid to find new friends. You're afraid of hurting their feelings. So that's where the sunk cost can hurt you in your relationships, is when something's just not working, but you keep investing in it with, like I said, either the hope that it's going to work, or you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, so you keep doing it, or it's just some or fear of something new, and then so you keep investing rather than ask the question, if I was to start again today, would I do the same thing?
Well, I'd like to ask a follow-up question just to make
Sure.
to have you make this idea clear. Let's say I want to be a medical doctor,
Hmm.
right? I want to study medicine, neurosurgery, uh, you know, doctor of the brain. And I start, it's year two, and it's really, really difficult. But I want to be a
Hmm.
doctor. I'm not one of those kids where my parents said I have to be a doctor. I'm like, no. I just sat down, I did my research. This is the thing, I love it. And it's year three, and it's as though the world is about to end. If anyone who studied medicine, they know how, the process you have to go through. And of course, they have to go through that process because they're literally doing life and death situations.
Yes.
At that point in time, how do I, because there are two different persons. For one person, it could be sunk cost fallacy, where I want to study music, medicine is really not my thing. And therefore, someone else, it might just be difficult, but they get to hope that, in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it will all be worth it. How do we tell the difference? Because it sometimes can get tricky.
It definitely gets tricky. And really looking at the origin of the idea.
Okay.
If you started off in life and your parents are pushing you, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a doctor. So you go and you're excited and you have a doctor, being a doctor. Is it difficult or is it not stimulating? And there is a difference. There's things that, it's, I don't know if I want to do this versus, oh my goodness, this is hard. I don't know if I can do this. Now, the first one, shows kind of boredom and maybe it's not for you, where the other one might be insecurity or just, it is hard. I mean, if it weren't hard, there would be a lot more neurosurgeons out there, but it's a hard thing. And that is where you have to kind of sit back and say, is it that it's too hard, or is it that I am having a little bit of imposter syndrome? Meaning, boy, being a doctor is important. Am I important enough? And that's where a couple of key support systems help. One is, emotional support. Someone who's there who could help you with your confidence and give you comfort. You don't want to ask them about the classwork and things like that. They're just there to help you kind of with your personal and mental health piece.
Yeah.
The second are what we're talking about earlier, the experts, your advisor, certain mentors, certain key teachers who could kind of give you guidance and talk to you and give you a path forward. So you can really see when you see the path and you think, yeah, I can do that. And you know what? I want to do that. And that's the key. Getting that support where you feel supported emotionally,
Yeah.
and then the support where you're supported academically, and then seeing as much of the environment as you can through your mentors, through informational interviews, and through advisors, so you can make a clear decision that's not based on fear and it's not based on influence. It's based on what you want.
I like the title of your book, Authentic Success. What
Thank
does
you.
that mean?
It's finding what success means to you and pursuing it. So it's funny you mentioned being a doctor. When I was in school, I started off in pre-med, and
Yeah.
I just found I didn't like it. So I moved on to do other things, help people in other ways. But finding what success means to you is a very personal thing. You've had different life experiences than I have. You have different goals than I have. So I can't tell you what success means to you. It's one way I've found to do it is what I call the 20 goals exercise, where you write down 20 goals, things that are just simple to really stuff that's just out there and what you might think is crazy. And then you organize those goals into themes. And those themes are things that you want to do. Like when I was that situation in my car moving forward. I one of my crazy goals was to write a book, and back then that was a crazy idea, but now I've written 4. And other
Wow.
goals kind of moved together, where I found that one of the things that would add to my authentic success is helping other people grow. And now that I've done that, I do get that fulfillment, and I've found my authentic success. It's something that's personal to me. It's not influenced by my family or my friends or society. It's mine, and I'm pursuing it the way I want to.
Wow. It's mine. I'm pursuing it the way I want to.
Mhm.
When people read An Authentic Success, what do you hope changes in the way they see themselves and the pursuit of success?
I want them to see that they can succeed, that they can find new purpose, and they don't have to go and reinvent their whole life. They could use their past experiences. Have minor shifts in their mindset. Set themselves up for people to want to help them. By showing their genuine interest in other people, and showing that their ability to get things done, so other people work with them. And then to make sure they become a lifelong learner, so that they keep up with things, like artificial
Yeah.
intelligence and other technologies that are just completely changing the way we do things, so that they can move forward, and find what they want, have the tools to succeed, and then achieve that success.
Yeah. Find what they want, have the tools to succeed, and then achieve that success.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Chad. Where can listeners learn more about who can also connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is through my website, authenticsuccess.com.
Yeah. I'll put the link in the description so the listeners can click and go directly to the site. Thank you, Chad. This has been a lovely conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.